Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod and listen to the show anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast. And of course, continue watching us on the ThunderCast YouTube channel. It was one hell of an embarrassing loss last night by the Marshall Thundering Herd on ESPN2 to the hands of Coastal Carolina. The Herd is now 4-4 overall, 2-2 in conference, still remains third in the Sun Belt East Division, in a tie now with Old Dominion. Now, right out of the gate, I got a big question I've got to ask you before we even talk about the freaking game. You look at the schedule remaining, you got James Madison coming to Marshall. You go on the road at Georgia State and then at App State, finish the season out at home against Georgia Southern. Does Marshall get to 6 wins? Because last night didn't look like this was a 6-win team. But I still think there's a couple of winnable games on the schedule. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think you can get to 6 wins. I mean, you know, I'm not saying we run the table and go 8-4, but I think 7-5, 6-6 are all, you know, reasonable.
Okay, out of that 4, that means you're going to have to win 3 of those 4, you know, to kind of get to 7 wins, and there's a couple of them that feel okay. And you're going to have to go on the road in Boone, and that's never easy.
Never easy.
Then you're going to have to welcome in James Madison, who is absolutely streaking, hasn't given up a point in the second half in, well, seemingly since the Reagan administration at this point. So it's tough to look at that and go 3 out of 4 based on what we saw last night. Now, I will say this. The Herd was due for a implosion of offensive sorts, and if it all happened all at once, good, because last night's second half was amongst the worst second halves in Marshall football that I can remember seeing in my Herd fandom. It was that bad. It was historically bad. I mean, I can't remember a time, I'm sure you can't either, where you see turnovers 5.5 and 4 on consecutive possession. I can't remember that happening at all. You know, that was just like the wheels literally blew off the machine last night. I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you?
No, in any game, not just ours, but like any game that I've ever watched, I've not seen 4 consecutive turnovers on 4 possessions that I can recall off the top of my head. Has it ever happened before?
I'm sure.
Probably. I mean, there's been a lot of college football played over the centuries, but the thing was saying, and I know that this is not where you're going, the thing was saying, based on how they played last night, you can't say this team is going to play like that in these next 4 games, every single game, you know, which you're not. But coming off of a big win, let's say, you know, against ODU, you also can't say the team is going to play like that in every game the rest of these. So, you know, there's ebbs and flows and it balances out. But I do think that 2 wins is probable out of 4, and 3 is not one of those where you'd have to say it's a big stretch.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm not going to put – I'm not thinking I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. If you look right out of the gate, you got to think both of the Georgia teams look to be the most winnable. None of them are doing very much right now. So you're thinking, okay. But we've gone down – you know, to Atlanta. Now, granted, they're coming here this year, but we've gone to Atlanta and lost games. And, you know, we know what happened last year against Georgia Southern, and this team is this year not immune to the second half collapse. You know, we've seen it already a couple times. They're not immune to getting bit by the big play bug, but out of the 4, no disrespect to Georgia State, Georgia Southern, you have to think out of the 4 remaining games, that's your 2 best shots at a win.
Yeah. Small correction, though. We are going to Atlanta. Georgia Southern's coming.
That's what
here.
I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I was even looking at Atlanta. So 2 years ago, that comes to mind. That was an ugly game. I think really the star play out of that game was some long pass to Rasheen Ali where he broke a tackle and spun out of the way and ended up into the end zone, and nothing else kind of went right for the Herd in that game. And then we're going to have to go down to that venue again. But anyway, I still think this team can get to 6 wins. I said this in our preview that Marshall's explosive offense has been or this defense has been able to hide behind this explosive offense far too often. And last night we saw what happens when the offense sputters or turns the ball over and the defense isn't able to keep pace, and things got out of hand pretty quickly. So outside of what we've talked about, what else did you see about this game, from your perspective? And then we'll get into some indicators.
It just went wrong spectacularly,
Yeah.
But it was just it was sluggish in the first half. Even though we were up, we were sluggish on the offense, and the defense left somewhat to be desired. But it just all went to hell right after that in the third quarter. I mean, just I don't know, not much else to say.
Well, even in the first half, when we came out of the gate with the pick six and then got another turnover, was only able to get to 10 points, and I thought, we should be up by a lot more. And Coastal was able to hang around. You're looking at a 3-point game at halftime, and I'm thinking, I don't feel good about this. We're catching breaks early in the game and we're not capitalizing. It just didn't feel right. It felt off. The whole thing felt off. And then what happened in the second half happened, and I want to talk more about that in grades because there's a lot of things that just stuck out to me that I was seeing, and it's not sour grapes. It's not retrospect looking and we should have done this, we should have done that, because I was thinking these things in real time. I'm sitting there watching on the couch and I'm thinking, man, this just doesn't seem like the team that I've seen play the past month. When the corner turned a little bit. This was a huge step back. And like you said, one of our most interactive Twitter followers, we tend to tweet back and forth a lot during the games. And I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to. It's not that I'm not trying to put shine on this guy because he's a pretty cool guy, but I don't want to get any accidental hate going his way. Mm-hmm. But he said that we don't often look like crap, but when we do, we make sure to do it on national TV, and that kind of hit me because there has been several games in the past, midweek games, to where we've just looked horrible, and it's in a prime audience, and that sucks. That amplifies things because we know that's not a microcosm of what this program is. It just happens to happen when there are more eyeballs on a game, and that sucks, man. It really does. Let's talk about indicators, and it was shocking to me in preparation for this game. I got to be honest with you. So let me rip them off here. Total yards, time of possession, first downs, third downs, penalties, and turnovers. Total yards, 432 for Marshall, 410 for Coastal. Edge Herd, time of possession, 31-33. Marshall, 28-27. Coastal, Edge Marshall. First downs, 22-16. Edge Marshall. Penalties or third downs, both teams 6 of 16. That's a push. Penalties 4 for 40 for Coastal Carolina, including a beautiful no call DPI, talk to a wall, and then 8 for 70 for the Herd. The trend continues. Edge Coastal. Turnovers 2 for Coastal Carolina, 5 turnovers listed for the Herd. So it started out really strong, and then it was one of those games where it's of course, the turnovers are going to be the equalizer, and they were scoring points directly off of the turnovers every time. This pushed the lead further and further ahead. Shout out to the defense for keeping them to 3 points a couple of times, but offense couldn't get anything going when you keep turning the ball over. Let's run through who did what in this game. Carlos Del Rio-Wilson, 21 of 36 for just $153 and a touchdown. 2 interceptions, 20 carries for 67 yards, and 2 fumbles credited to him as well. Antoine Roberts had a great night, career high, 134 yards on 15 carries, 8.9 yards per carry with a long of 54. Justin Williams-Thomas, just 5 carries in the game, 53 yards, 10.6 yards per carry with a long of 26. Tamarez was your leading receiver, 5 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown. Adrian Norton, 3 for 32. Notes on this Herd offense: just scored 14 points, 7 points per half, and both of those touchdowns came within a 9-minute span in game time. 4 second half turnovers on consecutive drives, which we've mentioned and we will continue to mention, and then absolutely 0 chunk plays in the pass game. Unbelievable stat line right there for the notes for this Herd. It just went stale, and more stale, especially through the air. Defensively, Boogie Trotter leads the way for the Herd, 6 total tackles. All 6 are solo and gets the interception, which was, I think, a 54-yard. Might have just been a 50-yard. I can't remember. 51-yard pick 6. JaVale Gilmore, 5 total tackles. All 5 of those were solo and 2 tackles for loss. Jalen Parker, Jamal Weiss, and Jabril Alameen, all 4 with 4 total tackles, all 4 with 4 solo tackles. Parker and Weiss add a tackle for loss. Dig this impact plays line for Marshall. Gross. 0 sacks, 0 passes defended, just 5 tackles for loss. They did force 3 fumbles, but only recovered 1. And then, of course, the 1 interception that resulted in a touchdown on the first series of the game. Notes for this Herd defense: they allowed 44 points, 27 unanswered points in the second half, 272 total yards and 4 touchdowns to Samari Collier, 214 yard rushing to a team that was only averaging 171 coming in, and chunk play touchdowns of 69 and 59 yards. Yuck. Special teams, Lorcan Quinn had a pretty good day, 2 of 2 on field goals with a new career long of 55, and 3 of 3 on extra points. Nathan Totten had 4 punts for 169 yards, a good for a 42.3 yard average. Long of 58 yards, landed 3 of them inside the 20. And then Xavier Turner Bradshaw had 2 kick returns for 40 yards. And then, of course, the only huge note that you have to talk about, this was a bad luck thing. This is when you know it's not your night and things ain't getting better. You have a fumble on the punt return, but it's because it hit Darrell Sweeting in the back and then recovered by Coastal Carolina after the Herd finally was able to get a 3rd down stop and would have had pretty decent field position. All of that equals a nasty 44-27 loss, dropping the Herd back to a 500 team all the way around. Let's revisit some keys to victory. What was your number 1 key to victory?
So I had contain Collier on the ground, force him to beat you through the air, and make sure he doesn't become an additional running back. He had 2 scores on the ground. He did well on the ground. It wasn't like he was, 150 yards or anything like that. But that's a big red X there. You can't say that he did anything. And then when you forced him to beat you through the air, well, he did that too. So,
and honestly, it's you credit to the guy. He had a great game. He did exactly what I said I hope he doesn't do, which was break out in that 3rd game in the system, just like we saw CDRW begin to do. But it wasn't like he was they had one of those chunk plays was a short pass that went 70, almost 70 yards or almost 60 yards. It was like untouched. It was horrible. Yeah. So he wasn't like slashing and dicing this defense. He did a great job against Marshall's defense though. But man, rough. My number 1 key to victory was to exploit the run game. You have a 109 ranked rush defense going against the number 29 ranked rush offense in Marshall. Now, look, I can't say that we didn't do it because we racked up 279 yards rushing against this team, but we were only able to punch in 1 touchdown on the ground. So it was really, really tough. And what I felt like was we moved away from it too often when it began to work and kind of took some gas away from ourselves. Just wasn't the night, man. What was your number 2?
The defensive backfield has to come up big. It's at that point of the season, blah, 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 blah. Can't give up this, blah, blah, blah. obviously that's a red X. You've got poor tackling angles for that play that you just talked about, a short pass, and we just ran right by the guy, and then he goes untouched.
Mm-hmm.
We had miscommunication where we were supposed to switch or not switch, and a guy goes 20 yards away from anybody. The announcer said it.
Nobody
The announcer said there's no one within 20 yards of them. And then they show on the replay, and our guys are pointing at each other like, obvious, just blew it.
Yeah.
And that was not the only 2 instances, but there's 14 points right there.
Yeah.
And it's just one of these things. I'll save that. Never mind. Okay. Just red X.
Okay. Of course, my number 2 also was you got to step it up on pass defense. Did not happen. Did not happen. You allowed a new career high to an essentially brand new quarterback in the system. Yeah, granted, it was still under 200 yards, but it's 8 of 20. So less than 50% passing, coming in as a 50% pass completion quarterback. Less than 50%, still gets 196 yards because of the chunk plays. Play of 69, a play of 40, 22, 24, 22, and that was to 5 different receivers. 5 different chunk plays to 5 different receivers. You didn't step it up outside of the first series of the game, and a couple, actually not more than the first series. Boogie Trotter was all over the place in the first part of the football game. I mean, it was his name being called all the time. And then, of course, as par for the course, offenses start throwing away from him, taking him out of the game, and things start to hit. So did not step it up in pass defense. What was your number 3?
Number 3 is keep the offense flying high. We're scoring over 35 per game and 46 in conference play. That was not a high-scoring offense. You get 1/3 of your touchdowns is because of Boogie Trotter with a pick 6. And other times, man, you would see us drop back where Rio-Wilson was looking long and we were getting no separation. We then also, too, had someone back there, even though they only had 1 sack. They were back there quite a bit and forced him to have to move out of the pocket and go for a run or throw it away or whatever. But that was not, even though we had 279 yards rushing, that was not a high-flying offense. No, red X.
That was my number 3, too. Keep scoring. Just keep scoring. Of all the things, keep scoring. That's the one thing you've been able to do consistently over the last month. They didn't keep scoring at all. And, of course, again, turnovers are going to directly lead to that not happening. But at some point, you've got to be able to overcome something. I mean, 4 straight turnovers doesn't happen all the time. But it got to the point there after that second one, whenever there was a drop back, whenever there was a handoff, I was thinking, is it going to happen again? And it happened again. And I was thinking, okay, that's 3 in a row. Is it going to happen again? And it happened again. And then we finally get a stop and we get a punt. And I'm thinking, is it going to happen again? And it did. And I was like, man, what is going on here? I can't believe what I'm seeing. This is the kind of shit that happens in like a video game.
Yeah, like if someone went in and put one of the cheat codes in the old video games that would make people fumble more or throw more interceptions. And that's what happened. It was like a voodoo curse hitting. And again, I want to save something that I'm going to save for later. But yeah.
Sure. Last one. What's the last one for you?
I said eat them up on the ground. We have 4 running backs and a quarterback that can share the load and keep fresh legs. We got 279 yards. Mm-hmm. I went back and forth from saying, should this be a half? Should it be yes, they get the check, but yes, they also get an X or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and give it to them. 279 yards on the ground is going to win you a lot of ball games. It also wasn't like that we got these at the end of the game when the game was out of hand. We were throwing at the end to try to throw at least. And we got a lot of these yardage in the first half and then, early in the third quarter. So, yeah, I'm going to say that we did a good job of racking up 279 yards.
Yeah, my final key to victory was stay focused because you win and you're in. And now no matter what happens, you're going to need help. Somebody's going to have to lose some games for you to have a chance to get into a Sun Belt Conference championship game. Even though they might have been focused on what was going to happen, the field did not. The play on the field did not translate to that in the second half of the game. You held a lead, you pushed it to 10 early in the second half, and then the wheels just blew off of the race car, man. It wasn't even a wobble. It was a straight up explosion. And hopefully that was most of all of the bad we're going to see for the remainder of the season. I can handle a turnover here and there. I can handle that. What I can't handle is 4.5. You'll be lucky to remain respectfully in a game if that's a trend that continues. Let's talk about some grades now, I guess. What do you got for the quarterback, Carlos Del Rio Wilson? Let me hit you one more time. 21 of 36 for $153, just an average of 4.3 yards per completion, and then 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think, let me look here. He was only sacked 1 time, and then another 20 carries for 67 yards, nothing on the ground.
He had 4 turnovers. At no point does someone with 2 turnovers and only getting 1 touchdown, wasn't it? One touchdown. At no point can you give that a good grade. That's an F. And those turnovers happened at the worst possible time, and it was because they were all consecutively right after each other. So it's an F. You know, I mean, there's just no way about it. He has been playing A ball to A plus ball all year long, and then he comes up with this, and it's an F. And he's still the guy. You know, everybody's going to have a game like this. It's just crazy that it went so extreme. You know, it wasn't, I mean, you know, he was due to have a C game. He hadn't had a C game, you know, and it went all the way down to this barely registers. And it's not like it's all his fault. We had some other things that I'll talk about in the next grade that, you know, is going to be where it wasn't all his fault. But he was credited with 4 turnovers. Yeah. And it's an F.
Well, he did have 4 turnovers, even though the first one was a pass behind the line of scrimmage type thing. Still, he's credited with 4, and he had 4. And here's the thing I don't like. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot of fans that are leaping off the bandwagon. They got shit to say. And it's like, man, we wouldn't even be where we're at if this guy hasn't been playing like a superstar and one of the top 2-3 quarterbacks in the league easily over the past month. So is it easy to watch? No, it was horrendous. It was a horrendous game to watch. And I feel for the kid because you could see he was in there. He was putting his shoulder down still and trying to get every yard he could get and all that kind of stuff. It's just like sometimes, man, you know, take what you can get and live to fight another day. Uncharacteristic play from a lot of guys. It wasn't just him, but when was the last time we saw a 21 out of 36 day for him? That's uncharacteristic, 15 incompletions. That's not we're used to seeing 4 to 8, that kind of deal. So it was a historically bad individual performance, but there were a lot of individually bad performances in this game that culminated in a horrendous team effort. But it still, nonetheless, is an F. Offensively, what do you have here? Let me hit you one more time again. What did I say? 423 yards, I think I said. Did rack up 22 first downs. Not good on third down. Of course, 1 of 3 on fourth down. Most of those were at the end of the game when we did not, just trying to keep the ball moving. Penalties go on both sides of the ball there, but possessed the ball for over half of the game. What do you got?
We had the turnovers, which we've already talked about. Yes, they got 279 yards on the ground, but we were letting them into our backfield seemingly all game. Mm-hmm. We were not able to get any separation whatsoever from the wide receivers. We had multiple drops. We had a huge drop for a guy that was wide open, Tamarez. Mm-hmm. And that play, even had he not dropped it, would have been called back because we had an untimely penalty. Mm-hmm. We had penalties. We had drops. We had an inability to move the ball at times. We had an inability to even pass downfield at times. Mm-hmm. And we just, even with the run game doing what it did, we stalled when we needed to. We didn't put up 7. It's an F.
Yeah, it is an absolute F. And if I'm not mistaken, of course, I say this just about every episode, your memory is far better than mine. But was there also not a touchdown to Norton that was called back?
The one that I'm thinking of, I don't know if it's he dropped.
You're thinking of the
ball.
one over the top to Tamarez that he just dropped, right?
Yeah, well,
Oh,
that
that's
was
right.
that was
Yeah,
the
well,
first
yeah,
one.
he dropped the ball.
Yeah. Norton, it looked like he made an amazing catch and was even called so by the announcers. But on the replay, it clearly
That's right.
the ball bounced.
I knew there was one in the end zone. I thought it was called back, but yes, it's the drop. That's what I'm thinking of. Or yes, it's a drop, whatever. But so there were things like that, like 2 definite touchdowns, definite. One would have been called back by penalty, even if it had been a catch. The other one would have been a miraculous catch. It's
Right.
kind of Adrian Norton's thing.
Right.
He has miraculous catches and makes miraculous plays for touchdown, but that's a drop in the end zone. And the thing that really, I don't know, there's got to be something that obviously we don't necessarily know about or that isn't really out there. Joshawn Barbie only gets 2 carries on the day for 3 yards, and it ends up being the touchdown in a really big rushing day. And you would have think a guy that's back from injury, that's as dangerous as he is, could have just been another cog in that rushing machine to help pound down this Chanticleer defense, and we didn't see it. Antoine Barber, great day. Justin Williams-Thomas came in relief, great day. We just did not see a lot of Joshawn Barbie until they were down in the goal line scenario, and then he punched it in. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because he's a big weapon to be able to utilize.
Well, this is heavy speculation, but, we didn't see him come out of the gate at the Texas State game, his first game back, being the guy getting the featured touches and everything. And he kind of got his touches late in the game and everything. And a lot of it was more on the same way that he did this time, short yardage situations, goal line sort of thing. So I don't know if, basically they're taking it easy so he doesn't. And again, this is speculation. I'm not saying I know what, because I don't know what the injury was. But let's say it was something with his leg and it was a hamstring or a knee or a calf or an ankle or anything like that. And you say, well, we don't want to have him out in open space, like, running, 60 some yards to where he could aggravate that injury. He's back and he's good to go, but we want to keep him in these specific situations. That seems to be like what it is. I don't think that it's a situation where somebody's like, well, you've lost all, they give him the ball in the situations where, hey, we're down here, we need a touchdown and everything. He's good to go for something like that.
Yeah, he's absolutely good to be your short yardage back and bang him. I mean, overtime tells you that. The touchdown in this game tells you that. What I'm saying is, like, you're telling me that this guy can't get you more than 2 carries in this game? He's too good for that. You know what I mean? He's too good for that.
I'm sure he could, but I think if you got Roberts running how he was, and when Justin Williams-Thomas comes in and is getting over 10 carry and things like that, I think that it's one of those situations where you would just say, why risk it when we've already got the production here? And they, again, gave him the rock when it was down at the goal line. I don't know. That just seems to be, and that's heavy speculation that I'm just reading into a bunch of stuff. I know nothing about.
I think what I'm getting at is, don't take carries away from your other backs. How about not having Rio-Wilson run 20 times? Maybe he runs 17 times and Barbie gets 3 more carries in the game. That's what I'm talking about.
I would agree with that. However, a good portion of Del Rio's runs, especially toward the end, was because there was nobody open and he had to tuck it and run. I don't think that they wanted him to run near 20.
Probably not. I
because
don't.
he was he was dropping back. Like I said, it wasn't a design thing, and it wasn't that he just decided to scramble. He scrambled because he had to scramble, and there was nobody open. You could see him looking long, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, I agree. It just struck me as odd that, you don't even see a handful. You get 2 carries out of Barbie, and he's just, to me, he's just too good. I get the idea that you don't want to aggravate anything, especially since you've already got Mike Allen on the shelf right now. You would like to get him back. I would love to get a full complement of Marshall running backs back for this down the stretch run. We're going to need them, right? We're going to need them.
Hey, KD, before we get into the defense, I've got to get a word from 304carwreck.com, Leasure Oliver.
Totally forgot.
But
Jeez.
a good place to put them, since we didn't hit them at the start, is right in the middle of these grades where everybody's going to be seeing it anyway.
Sure.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Speaking of a car wreck, let's talk about this defensive effort for the Herd. I don't know if that was on purpose, but boy, it sure does fit.
Great segue.
This defense really, really is I don't know. Pass defense is not good. It's not good. You know, from time to time, you'll get an interception. Boogie Trotter is now tied for first in the nation, I think, with interceptions and interceptions returns for touchdown. At least tied first in the conference. One of the two or both. I don't know.
It's in the country. Yeah.
So there's a definite superstar in the defensive backfield, and you've got other capable guys, but there are far too many others that are getting busted, allowing busted coverages. They're not communicating well. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen to Boogie too. It does. It happens to all of them. Yeah. But it's happening far too often. And at this point, it's not piling on because that trend isn't reversing. They're not getting better. They're getting exposed every week. And it's something you can't just go, we've got to get better. Like, something has to happen. It's a trend that Marshall this week was not able to shoot out their opponent. The turnovers kept it from happening. So defensively, what do you have for this Herd?
Well, here's what I'm looking about with the defensive backfield. Okay. If they play, the best coverage that you've ever seen individually, 8 times out of 10, that's getting glossed over and overlooked because those 2 times out of 10, they're so far out of place, or they took a bad angle that it has led to a wide open touchdown and things like that. So we're not saying that these guys are not playing well at any point of the game, but when they break, they break. It's not one of these is, he gave up a 5-yard over the middle to that guy and he should have, had better coverage, or, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the ones those chunk plays that you just mentioned, the 22, 21, 26, all that, 59, 69, all those. One was a bad tackle angle and the guy goes untouched. The other, the miscommunication where they're pointing at each other, we already talked about. The guy's wide open, okay? With everything that happened, every single thing that happened the same way in that game, if you get that tackle with a better angle and you just play some type of defense instead of having that guy wide open, that's 14 points right there in a 17-point game. And it looked like this game was not even close after that third quarter. But it would have been drastically different, even with our turnovers and everything, if we just had some sort of defense there. We got 0 sacks. We didn't have anybody getting more than 6 tackles. It's an F on this defense because you took a quarterback that went 8 for 20, and 2 of those were, again, one was a short pass and the other was wide open that, even though I'm a shell of my former self, I kind of think I might have been able to find that guy in the end zone. We're talking about some egregious mistakes in this game, and you cannot have that. And this quarterback went 8 of 20, and he threw for 196, but 2 of them were for just ridiculously long passes. And I again, this guy did not beat us. His stat line, when you look at it, the only thing that jumps out at you is 196 yards. But we beat ourselves by allowing him just to do this easy stuff. He tacked on 60 yards or whatever on that one play by us not tackling a guy. Short little end, hitch route, goes right to him, and we just run to the wrong place. Ran like he was going to just keep going. And no one's there as a safety to kind of help out on that side. It was bad, man. It's an F.
It's an F, and I also don't want to just pick on the secondary.
It's not. No, it's
because
every level. Every level.
Yeah, and because the 59-yard touchdown was a run play, and I'm also not just talking about those busted coverages.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I'm also not talking about just those busted coverages that look optically horrible. I'm also talking about the continual 3rd and 6 that you give up 8 yards.
Right.
I mean, come on. And then when you finally look like you're getting somebody off the field, 3rd down, you get the stop, face mask penalty. Resets the drive. Now you're 1st and goal from the 2 or whatever. When you're get the stop and you're going to force a field goal try. So it's not just suspect pass coverage. It's soft 3rd down play, like continually being able to move the ball. I mean, it's just deflating. It's deflating. And then when you finally do get the stop, it's a PI call, or it's a face mask call, or it's an offsides call for a free play that sets up a 3rd and short. It's got to be infuriating to a defensive coach that has made his life about defensive football. We're just a couple of guys that get to talk about it into a microphone. I'm not at practice. I don't have to go through those drills. I don't have to live that life, right? I get to be a fan and get pissed on Saturday when it doesn't go right, and then talk about it on Sunday, and then we move on. But unfortunately, this was horrible. It is horrible. And I feel bad for Tony Gibson and his staff, but it's horrible.
No sacks, no pass deflections. They do get 5 tackles for loss, but
just 5.
Yeah, 5. And
just 5.
And again, just everything that they gave up, you're just sitting here thinking like, guys, just get a stop. I mean, but it hit on offense and it hit on defense. Yeah. Both of those were just horrible.
Yeah. Then you get the stop and let's talk about special teams.
Let's do it.
Lorcan Quinn had a great day. Obviously, a new career long. This kid, what a superstar he's turning into, more consistent. We're seeing the 4-for-4 day, the 2-for-2 day. Nothing really exciting in the kick return game. Bradshaw did well, a couple of 20-yard returns, but the big one was the fumble. That was called a fumble, but it hit Darryl Sweeting in the back. That's it. That should be a poison play. Nobody should be in the area of Floyd Lacey, but when it ain't your night, it ain't your night. What do you got for special teams?
Well, you know how we talked earlier about Carlos Del Rio-Wilson was due to have at least a C game because he'd been putting out nothing but A's. Think of the last time that we had much of anything to talk about with fumbles for special teams. Louisiana, and I think that's it. And that's it. We've had such stellar play from punting. We've had such stellar play from Floyd Lacey on the return game. We have done some good things on the defensive side of that, on special teams. This is another F, and here's why. One, you have a chance after all of that to get back into the game with decent field position, and you have that happen.
Yep.
And also, Floyd Lacey fumbled one earlier in the game. He also, when he caught one and fielded one, he tripped, but he caught himself. It just seemed like it was off the entire game. And we also allowed a huge return to set up one of those drives that they
sure
had.
Did.
So it's another F. And it's just crazy to me that, I mean, here we're putting nearly every single kick through the end zone, and even that didn't go our way, to where we allow them to run one and come back. Totten, until he hit that 58-yarder, he had the first 2, I think he was averaging like 34 and a half maybe out of the first 2. And one of them was inside the 20. But it was like even he was not kicking well. And then he hit that one that had that great bounce to get him inside the 20. 3 inside the 20 on 4 punts is good. But his average was really saved there toward the end. Just top to bottom, though, you look at offense, defense, special teams. We lost that game on all 3 levels.
Sure did. And it's not unfair to say we were beaten. We didn't just lose it. It's easy to say you beat yourself when you have a lot of turnovers. But some of those turnovers were created. I mean, think about that. The first interception, right to the defender. The second interception, miraculous play, tip drill interception. It was like, if I'm a Coastal fan, I'm going to be talking about that interception for a while because that was awesome. As a Herd fan, it sucks, but it was an unbelievable play. The fumble on Del Rio-Wilson, where his forward progress is basically stopped. They ripped the ball out. That's a created turnover. You know, Floyd Lacey got lucky. They put a helmet on the ball and it went out of bounds, or you're looking at another potential turnover.
Forgot about that one on the special team.
So it was Coastal beat this team. They did. They beat the game. They beat this team despite being outgained, but despite being outpossessed, despite a first down disparity. They went out and created turnovers, got points off those turnovers consistently. What do you got for the coaching staff in this one? Long week of preparation. Let's talk about it. Long week of preparation. Had some momentum going into this one. Had a lot of fan support in this one. So what do you got?
It's got to be an F. You know, you can't have an F grade on your quarterback, your offense, your defense, your special teams, and then say, yeah, but coaching was good. It's a B. You know, no, it wasn't. You know, the preparation obviously wasn't there. The stopping the bleeding wasn't there. The offense looked sluggish. And I heard a bunch of people talking about the play calling. I don't necessarily agree and think that, hey, it was just horrible play calling. There was a lot of things that just simply did not work, you know, when we were trying to do. I loved, first time I'd ever seen this, that like triple fake where Del Rio-Wilson.
That's a beautiful play.
Beautiful, man. And so I can't get on board with people saying it's horrible play calling. It's easy when something doesn't work to say, well, that was horrible. It didn't work. But if they would have ripped it off for a 68-yard touchdown, he's a genius, you know? So I'm not going to bitch about the play calling, but as an offensive guy, a defensive guy, a special teams guy, and your head coach, if you have and your quarterback coach, if you have Fs across the board on all that, they have to get an F too. And we came out flat. We just did not execute. And I think if you talk to any of those coaches over there, they're not going to say, hey, we did an A and those guys just didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you that was a bad game. I haven't even listened to Tony's press conference, but I can't imagine, as a guy who tells it like it is and does not use coach speak, that he didn't take some form of credit for that, because he's done it all year long and said, that's on me. Even when we win, hey guys, I screwed up on this situation right here. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an F. It's an overall. It's an F.
Yeah, his post-game presser, I guess, is worth listening to if you want. The whole thing's not very long. It's coaches and players all in one. It might be like 8 minutes, 9 minutes. It's very short. And, yeah, he took a lot of the brunt of that, obviously, as you're supposed to do. And here's the thing for me. I'm not going to gripe about play calling as a whole. I griped about it during the game in a specific area. And it's when we had the opening second half touchdown drive. Immediately following that was the big kick return and the Coastal touchdown. And immediately following that was the whatever the hell that play was going to be. That was the pass behind the line. I was like, okay, was this supposed to be a halfback pass? Was it just a swing pass? Like, what was it going to be? It looked like they were trying to set up some kind of trick play. And that's where the wheels started coming off. And that's what I tweeted, like, wow, we might as well move away from what was working for us, which was misdirection run play. That worked all of the game long. Misdirection runs were working great, sometimes in big chunks. Sometimes it might have been a 4-yard gain, but it was a positive movement of the football. And we went away from that after just going – Roberts ripped off the 54-yard run, and immediately we move away from it. The first play, some kind of pass that went bad. And I'm like, God, it's like, again, you know, this is not your night when you do stuff like that. Should have just, I mean, could have, should have, would have, but I would have rather seen them run it 60 times instead of 45 times because it was working. It was working to a certain degree. And you'd like to think like, okay, you probably don't turn the ball over a couple of those times and maybe you get a couple more on the board. And that pit is a little bit of hindsight, but yeah, maybe you win that game. Ugly, but maybe you win it. So it's fair. It's F across the board. So up until this point, we're repeating week 8. So what do you got for the fans?
Oh, the grassroots effort to get more people to go down there was great. The people that showed up down there, I've heard a bunch of different people talk about roughly how many were there and things like that. Seen a few pictures, and it looked like it was a great turnout. I really wish I could have been there, but also I'm glad I didn't drive down and have to do that. I did that in 2023. But they get an A, and they're the only thing from this individual grade that is going to be an A. I do have to say it. I'm not splitting. I'm not saying, hey, you don't get an A for this, you don't get an A plus or whatever. This is just the time that I want to remind everybody that when you're on social media, Twitter especially, you don't have to be the funniest guy in the room or try to be. You don't have to be the most outrageous take guy in the room or try to be. But we are getting a bad reputation, and we've talked about this recently, where everyone has always said that Marshall has the best fans and hospitality, never been treated better. We go to Huntington, we get invited to this, everyone's cool. But we are to the point where we have a horrible reputation on Twitter, and the entire Marshall fan base is like that. And I just want to point out, I usually don't put shine on these guys, and I don't mean in a positive way, but I mean just giving anything. A guy from Coastal put out a horrible GIF after the game, and it was about the plane crash. And I'm sure that when he was doing that, he was thinking, oh, this is edgy. Oh, this is something that, a lot of people's like, oh, can't believe you went there, things like that. All it did was make him look like a dumbass to everybody at Marshall, but also fellow Coastal fans. And I don't want our fans being looked at in that same way to do that. So I don't know. I'm not the fan police. I'm not the Twitter fan police. But if you care about Marshall University, you may want to think, hey, am I doing what this douchebag's doing over here? Just in maybe not going that far. But if players, recruits, potential players, and things like that see us behaving in that way and they decide not to come to Marshall because of that, you're doing harm to the university that you love. So that's all I want to say about that. It's not affecting any grades or anything. I thought we did a great job of showing up. I thought we did a great job of planning. I thought we did a great job of encouraging everybody to get a groundswell of support for this, so they get an A.
Yep, I got to give a lot of credit to the guys and gals that made the trip. And you could tell there was a lot of Kelly Green in the stands there. And now I have mixed emotions about that, because we do that because we support our team. I don't have mixed emotions about going to those games and crowd and Marshall fans going to those games. What the mixed part of that emotion is, we continually do that for our conference mates, and very few of them do that for games in Huntington. And that sucks, because we go to root on our team, which means we have a very passionate fan base, and others can say that, but unless you travel, then it's all talk. We travel, and Herd fans have always been known to travel. Win, lose, or draw, bad seasons, great seasons, they will travel. And that's something that you got to love about Herd fans. So shout out to everybody that decided to take this one down to Conway and try to make it a pseudo home game for the Herd. Players in the postgame said, we saw all that Kelly Green out there, and it made a difference. It didn't feel that much like an away game as some of the other places we go to. It felt more like a home game. And they kind of said that they appreciated that energy that they were getting. And in games like that, every bit of that fan energy was undoubtedly helping, keeping them feeling like they could still pull this one out, And to your point about social media, I deal with a lot of our social media positives and fallout. There's not a game that goes by now. It used to be a pretty rare thing, but now there's not a game that goes by where a team beats Marshall that there's not a plane crash joke. It's like the go-to, it's like the first quote unquote joke to be fired off. And
Right.
that's your opportunity as a Herd fan to take the high road. Smack talk is great, man. Like, during game leading up, like have fun, talk a little smack, whatever. But when you see that, that's your opportunity to show that you are a class individual. That's the time that you don't also go low or try to go lower. You go higher. And I saw that account, and that guy had been chirping at me, guy, girl, I don't know who it is, had been chirping at me for no reason whatsoever because I've never interacted with them. And as a matter of fact, the guy chirped at me because of the tweet announcement of the baseball commit that we got the other day. And I'm thinking, go away. Who are you? And so during the football game, chirped a little bit and then posted that. So naturally, I wanted to see if that same account had anything to say about how Coastal was treated at App State. And lo and behold, they absolutely did. Crying and whining about how App State fans were so mean to Coastal players. And then 10 days later, 12 days later, you're doing the same damn thing. So Big Baby, Charmin Soft, don't care if you see this. The truth is what the truth is. You can't whine and cry foul and then the very next week do the same kind of thing. So shout out to the Herd fans. You guys were awesome. Online, I will say, everybody seemed to be stomaching this effort unbelievably well. You know how Herd fans will jump off of a cliff.
I saw a few. And
some will, but by and large, man, it was kind of, I think we were all collectively in shock, Russ. 5 turnovers, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, but I still saw some people, doing some stuff that you shouldn't do. You don't have the knee-jerk reactions that you do. We've long talked about, you can't sit here. Hell, we talked about how we played against Old Dominion earlier, and you can't say, well, that's how we're going to be forever. We're going to be world beaters and all that. Nobody can beat us. And you can't go after this game and say, oh, we'll never win again. But I saw a bunch of people saying that. Season's over, and saying a lot worse about individual players and coaches and things like that. Again, trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But it's one of those situations where right now there are 4 games left for just about everybody in the conference. So we're not eliminated. And no matter how unlikely that it may be, if we beat James Madison, and then we own a tiebreaker over them. If they were to lose one more game, they have 3 more conference games that if they lose one of those, and they have a situation that just happened to us where a meltdown of epic proportions happens. I don't care what you're favored by. We were favored by 78% according to the matchup predictor there.
Sure was.
And we've lost games when we've been the 90-some%. And it can happen. They lose one game and we win next week, and we are still able to win the East Division. It's not over. I don't care how unlikely it is. That's why you play the damn games, and we're going to suit up and we're going to play them. And you better believe that these players and the coaches aren't going to give it up just because somebody online said, well, it's over and, can't win now. What's the point? I'll start watching again next year. You better not say you're not going to the game next week because we lost this one. Get out of here with that.
Yeah. First of all, it's 75 week in Huntington. You don't need another reason to go. I don't care if this team's 0-9. You go to that game if you're able to go to that game. And things aren't over. But there's always going to be fans that are going to be the first. They want to be the first to jump off the cliff, and have that hot take tweet that they hope goes viral.
Cool. Yeah.
But is that really the take that you want to go viral? Is that really the take that you want to be known for? Is like something horrible? Anyway. I will say this, since you keep talking about how we played Old Dominion, would that be how we played forever? In this game, is this how we're going to play forever? No. I'm going to remind everybody of a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase again from a good friend of mine and a good friend of the show that is going through something today, and our hearts are with him a little bit. And that's Stephen Moffat, the host of the Topper Talk podcast. We talk about Moff all the time because Moff's a great human being. He is an excellent excellent human. And if whatever you feel about Western Kentucky, feel about them. But Stephen is a wonderful person. And he says all the time, you're never as good as your biggest win, and you're never as bad as your worst loss. And this Marshall team is kind of personifying that this year. You're kind of who you are. And right now we're a 500 team, and we can win in epic proportion and we can lose in epic proportion. But we are who we are. And while we're talking about Steven, he's having surgery today, and I've been thinking about him. He put it out there a couple of weeks ago, so we can talk about it now. He's been battling cancer. Mostly, he's not been talking about it. He's been fighting this fight, keeping it off social media, and just privately fighting it. And he let everybody know after most of the battle was over. He's having surgery today to remove the cancerous parts of his body. And, so I've been thinking about him a lot the past couple of days. And, first thing this morning, I let everybody know what he was going through, and texted him and told him that the loss last night on national TV was our gift to him, tongue in cheek, because he's a Western guy. But just keep that in mind. You're never as good as your biggest win. You're never as bad as your worst loss. So overall, what do you got?
It's an F. I mean, come on, man. It's national TV. You got a chance to win that game after JMU spectacularly won that game, and that just sets up a huge showdown in Huntington, and the storylines and all that stuff, and we blew it. It's an F.
Yeah, we blew it. I was waiting to see if I would get like a D minus with the fan grade giving a little boost, but I'll take an F. I mean, it is what it is. Offensive MVP, who you got this week?
It's Roberts, man. He had a great game. He seemed to be shot out of a cannon there a couple of times. I just want to give a special honorable mention to Williams Thomas. Man, just when he went in, he was running with a purpose. Yep.
We have seen it's Antoine Roberts for me also, by the way. He had been doing a lot of the dirty work for this year, hard yards. He would come in relief and get chunk runs, and it was really nice to see him set that career high, go over 100 yards for the first time in his Marshall career. And now to see like Williams Thomas take on what the Roberts role had been early in the season, come in, get a little relief, get the hard yards, chunk plays. It was nice. It was pretty cool, man. So shout out to Antoine Roberts. This herd defense, or this herd offense, can be dangerous again. And they will be dangerous. You're not going to see 4 turnovers every week. But just imagine if you get a full complement of running backs and what they're able to do when you don't know who's got the juice that week. That we've seen it before. We'll see it again. Defensively, who's your guy?
It's Boogie, 51-yard pick six. It's his second pick six. It's the second time this year that he's put the first points on the board for the herd or anybody, in that game. It was 0-0 both games, and he decides to take one to the house. He's an absolute threat to do so. We talked about it in the pre-game, or preseason. But one of the things that I like about him are the solo tackles in open space. And he did that yet again in here. He saved countless yards, saved a couple of drives for us. Excellent effort again by Boogie.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question it has to be Boogie Trotter. And even if the herd defense as a whole, if the impact stat line would have been a little bit better, I'm not so sure that even still Boogie Trotter wouldn't have been the MVP. He had a great individual game early on. In the second half of the game, they just were not throwing his way. And that's almost as good as racking up tackles, because you're effectively eliminating, a half of the field on your side of the ball. The problem was everybody else has to match that energy. Who's your special teams guy?
It's Quinn, 55-yarder. Now that one I would have liked to have seen it go about 5 to 10 yards further, so we could see, hey, we can throw him out there for a 63-yarder at the end of the half, end of the game. I like his chances though for that, and he had a 55-yarder, and like you said, he's honing that in a lot more, getting more clutch and everything. It's him. Yeah,
it's Lorcan Quinn, kind of by a country mile. Everything else other than Totten having a couple of good punts went quite awry on the special teams. So it's not only Quinn by default, but he earned it outright anyway. I still think, given the circumstances, if he knows that it's a kick that necessarily doesn't mean anything, a at the end of the half type deal, or, they just want to see if he can do it in a win, on a fourth down kind of deal. It doesn't mean anything. I'd love to see him try to uncork something from about 63 to 65. I'd love to see it. I'd like his chances just like you. Distance-wise anyway.
Yeah.
Distance-wise anyway. All right, last question. What do we know about the Herd after 8 games?
Well, we know that they were due for one of these, and I feel like this was worse than the Louisiana game, and I felt like this was miles worse than the Missouri State game. So if this is the worst game that they're going to have and they still roughly had a chance to be in it without a couple of screw-ups, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not time to jump off the cliff. It's not time to jump off the bandwagon. It's not time to give up. What I do know is the Herd is better than what they performed during this game, and moving forward, I think they will be. I think this has to be the bottom, so the only where you can go up is up. The only place you can go is up from here. But that's it, man. We know that this team now is 4-4, and they have a really good chance of going 6-6. And when we were doing our previews, we were talking about how everybody in the country, except for the people that were covering the Herd, didn't think that they had any chance of going 6-6 and going to a bowl. And that is still very much on our radar, on our table. And I think that still, if there's some people out there that didn't give us 4 wins, and we're already 4-4. So don't give up on the Herd. They're resilient. We're going to bounce back, and I guarantee there's going to be some lessons learned from this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I know about the Herd is that you're not going to see this type of stuff happening often. I mean, we're 30-some years of Herd fandom, and we can't recall it happening like this. So I'm also not a guy. I'm not big on the, well, if this doesn't happen, well, if that doesn't happen, this. But I'm going to take that approach for this particular scenario. If it's only 2 turnovers instead of 4 by Del Rio-Wilson, that's at least 6 points fewer for Coastal Carolina. And you might think that those maybe turn into 6 points maybe for the Herd, and that's a pretty big flip-flop when you're talking about a 17-point game. Yeah, it still turns out to be a loss ultimately for Marshall. But what if it's not 3 or 2 field goals? What if it's a couple touchdowns? That flips the script significantly. So I just don't expect to see 4 turnovers in a row on offense. I don't expect to see 5.5 even. So I'm not a big guy that looks at it that way. I just know that I'm probably not going to see this again, this season. Yeah, at least God, I hope not. So I haven't lost faith in the Herd. I never lose faith in the Herd. I sat through bad seasons for many, many years. I've sat through good seasons. It's just like you can't quit. It's like a disease. You can't quit them. They're a toxic girlfriend you can't get rid of. You just like I just can't quit. It's an addiction, man. I'm addicted to Herd athletics.
Well, listen, you're talking about these turnovers. The first one, after they had that backward pass and the fumble, it only took 2 plays, but only 18 yards. They were already in the red zone when they got it. The next one, they had 4 plays and went 3 yards and got a field goal, but they got it on the 28.
Right.
You're already in field goal range. Then with the interception, that we were actually down there pretty far. They were on the 39 of the other side of the field,
right.
So they did have to go on that one, but 2 of those were right next to the red zone. And then that next one, where was that? They got the ball on the 41. So they were on their side of the field and real close and already in field goal on 2 of those, but they had a short field on 3 of those. And you just have to think that if you could have even just punted the ball away, that they wouldn't have been able to do what they did.
Well, if you get standard Herd drives and maybe give Quinn a chance at a field goal.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah.
So let's stay on the truck for another couple of weeks, at least until stay with this team. I'd never say give up on them, but stay with, as long as a bowl game is possible. Why would you ever walk away? Why would you ever go, I'm done. Like 4-4, right? They're not 1-7,
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the season's basically over. You're trying to play spoiler. Marshall's not even mathematically eliminated from an East Division title right now. Why would you give up? It sucks, dude. It sucked bad to lose to Louisiana the way we lost. It sucked worse to lose to Coastal the way we lost. So what? It's losses. Like, move on. You got James Madison. What if you go in on Saturday and you beat James Madison? What then? What then? What then? Let's break that trend where the home team has lost every game. What then? Do you look at a Coastal loss on Thursday night and then go, okay, that was ugly, and you go in on Saturday and you beat James Madison, all of a sudden the narrative changes again? Like, this is basically a juggernaut coming in the way that the Dukes have been playing. What if they come in and turn the ball over 5 or 6 times? Go listen to our preview again. I said, in order for Marshall not to be able to win a shootout type game, they're going to have to turn the ball over 4 or 5 times or something like that. And that's exactly what happened. Don't give up yet. Russ, you got anything else?
Final thing, I've been saving it for a while, and you said that we didn't beat ourselves, they beat us. And I want to let everybody know we're giving respect to Coastal. They did come out and beat us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying that we were vastly superior and all that, but we 100% shot ourselves in the foot and set it up on a silver platter for them to come in and do that. Especially the first backwards pass, it was way too high and too far back. And then the next one was right in the hands of the receiver. I mean, the defensive guy. We gave them this game. We still, though, like I said earlier, after 4 consecutive possessions of turnovers, we're still not out of this game and still had a chance to go in and do some damage. We are a good team. Please, please, please do not let one anomaly of a game define how you think that we're going to do the rest of the time. We've said that all throughout this, but that is my final words to everybody. Just remember that and show up next week for 75 week.
Yeah, you have to move on, right? The sun came up today. It's Halloween. You expect some spooky shit to happen, and it happened. Yeah, so now we look forward to James Madison coming into Huntington, West Virginia, looking to play spoiler on their season right now because they are rolling. They're undefeated in conference. They got one loss to Louisville, who's actually doing really well as well. So this is an excellent opportunity to put the Herd back on the radar and say, hey, look, this wasn't a fluke. The fluke was the turnovers last week. The fluke was, just losing the way you lose. So come in, play against James Madison. It's going to be an awesome environment with 75 week. It always is. That is, if people continue to turn out. Go in and get a win. Go in and get a win and change the narrative on this season. All of a sudden, you're 5-4. It looks a hell of a lot better than 4-4. You put some distance back between yourselves and the bottom of the conference, and then you go on a run. I mean, you beat James Madison. You think you feel pretty damn good about going 4-0 to close out the season. And that changes everything. One game at a time. Dukes are next up. This one's over. Let's move on. Russ, take us out of here.
Whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us always supporting Marshall University, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.